This episode is brought to you by iZotope. Our friends over at iZotope create the most thoughtfully and intuitively designed software for audio repair, mixing, and mastering. I use their tools every day for the podcast, and I love it. And I think you will too. Go over to iZotope.com and check it out. That's iZotope.com. iZotope. Use the code FRET10 at checkout for a 10% discount. That's all caps, F-R-E-T, and the number 10.
Allow me to live and breathe like a man.
You've heard his words on classic albums like Pacific Ocean Blue and Friends. His 1969 collaboration with Brian Wilson, A World of Peace Must Come, gained almost legendary status as one of pop's most storied lost albums before being resurrected to great acclaim by Light in the Attic in 2008. Now you're cordially invited to take a trip into the mind of poet and songwriter Stephen J. Kalinich. Heyday Again Records presents I Love My Life, a postcard from one of the last standing poets of peace and excitation. Order your copy today. I Love My Life by Stephen J. Kalinich and Friends. You'll see why heavy hitters like Brian Wilson, Dennis Wilson, Paul McCartney, Steve Cropper, P.F. Sloan, and Diana Ross have all worked with him. I Love My Life by Stephen J. Kalinich. Order today at realgonemusic.com. Again, that's realgonemusic.com. The second single from Future Prophet Records is here. Birthday Girl presents Never the Sound, available right now on Future Prophet Records. That's Future, Prophet, records.com. Order now. Is there anything that you'd like to say about the length of time during which you had harbored ambitions of working with Brian to tap into that side of his talent in the future, and then the disappointment that you faced when you finally got the chance?
I didn't really want to work with Brian. This is my insecurity. He was too scary for me.
Yeah.
He was a giant shadow. I've said this before. Certainly record makers in LA, while we were doing whatever we were doing, he was on a level that we could barely see.
Welcome to another episode of Discograffiti's wildly in-depth Beach Boys series and Your Dreams Come True, where Brian Wilson freaks like you and me get our chance to delve deep into the barely believable history and prodigious discography of my favorite band of all time, and also coincidentally the best, along with a slew of over 50 top-shelf guests, ranging from musicians inspired by their work, family members, documentary directors, songwriting collaborators, Beach Boys authors, producers, touring band members, and for good measure, some of the Beach Boys themselves. I'm your host, Dave Gebroe, and special thanks goes out to co-producers Chuck Granata, Dennis Dyken, and Mark Freed, without whom this series would not have happened. And in this episode, we'll be turning our spray cans on the career of legendary producer and studio head Lenny Waronker, along with our special guest, the man himself, Lenny Waronker. Initially intended solely as a deep dive discussion on Dyke Parks' majestic debut record Song Cycle, the first album Lenny ever produced, this, of course, turned into something else entirely, a 5.5-hour career-spanning interview with one of the kindest, most honest and vulnerable human beings who ever set foot in the music industry. Initially also intended as part of our Beach Boys and Your Dreams Come True series, it felt far too important not to stand on its own. Part 1 of this 4-part series focuses on the early years of Lenny's career, leading up to the first album he ever produced, Dyke Parks Song Cycle. Here are just a few of the many things that Lenny discusses with Discograffiti in this podcast. what it was like growing up with his father Simon as he set up and funded the launch of his own company, Liberty Records, befriending Randy Newman as a small child and coming to realize how gifted he was, what it's like for Lenny and Randy to struggle with issues of self-confidence and how those issues manifest, meeting Van Dyke Parks for the first time and beginning to work with him, hearing Brian Wilson's smile tapes through Van Dyke, and the contract offered to Van Dyke, possibly the most artistically and financially advantageous agreement ever made with anybody ever. Coming up, we've got incredible deep dive series on Spirit, Love, Jefferson Airplane, and a hell of a lot more. So don't miss out. Open up your listening app right now and subscribe. For over 4 years now, Discograffiti's Friday episodes have been completely free, and it's been my pleasure. But for a variety of reasons, Discograffiti's now moved to the subscription-based Patreon as our primary platform. Moving forward, our public stream will feature a teaser of the Friday episode and a Tuesday teaser of the bonus episode, and that's all. But here's the good news. Only $5 a month will get you the weekly Friday podcast to which you become accustomed. That's it. It's a no-brainer at just $1 an episode. And just that little bit will be what's required to help the show survive. To sweeten the pot, you'll also get regular installments of the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound podcast. That's Rudy Fishman's podcast within a podcast featuring our Patreon members as guests. You'll also get access to over 100 back episodes of that show. The $10 Lieutenant tier gets you all that, plus access to half of the Patreon archive. That's hundreds of additional episodes, plus copies of my personal show notes, which include invaluable research, star ratings, and reviews. But the $20 major tier is the place to be, unless you can support the show on even higher tiers, which, if you can afford it, offers substantial perks, including advertising on the show and selecting the guests and artists I cover. With the major tier and above, you get it all. The Monday bonus episodes, aka the best stuff, the Friday show, the Soldiers of Sound podcast, plus access to the entire archive. That's many hundreds of Patreon episodes, an absolutely endless barrage of music entertainment, including 50 episodes of The Private Press with Paul Major, Rock Cousteau, Queasy Listening, and so much more. This tier will also be the only way to access the entire upcoming Spirit series, the entire Love series, the entire Lenny Waronker series, and the entire Jefferson Airplane series. Frankly, it'll keep you busy for the rest of your life. So support the podcast that's been supporting you for years. Discograffiti's calling, and it needs you, so don't risk feeling guilty by not giving. But enough of me yapping. Go on, subscribe now. Visit patreon.com/discograffiti and find the tier that's right for you. And away we go then! Today's guest is a record producer and music industry executive. As the president of Warner Brothers Records, and later as the co-founder and co-chair of DreamWorks Records, he was noted for his commitment to artists and his belief that music, not money, was still number one. In 2025, he was selected for induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in the Ahmet Ertegun Award category for non-performing industry professionals. When I tell you they don't make them like him anymore, I say it in a manner tinged with a sullen yearning reserved for the passing of a bygone and indisputably better era, when men like this man roamed the earth and excelled in business while retaining their souls, never giving chase after or being distracted by the almighty dollar. The music was everything to him, and as one will be able to glean from the forthcoming conversation, which hasn't even yet occurred at the time of this very intro, but which I couldn't be more positive will be fraught with French Connection car chase level excitement, simply because, like yours truly, music flips a primal switch in his soul. And almost 60 years ago, this man flipped a switch which ignited Van Dyke Parks' career. And of course, I use the word career loosely, in quotes, as would he. And he produced that man's debut record, over which today we are going to fawn sycophantically, perhaps gesticulate wildly in the direction thereof, and engage in VDP-approved wordplay whilst we discuss the ins and outs of allowing it to take shape. Lads and ladies, he's the mensch on a pension who greenlit a costly debut from another dimension, a record inarguably fraught with pretension that commands no less than one's entire attention. Please welcome to the hallowed halls of Discograffiti'ville, Randy Newman's oldest and best bud on the planet, Lenny Waronker.
Hey.
Hey.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. I should mention, because this is an audio podcast, that this man is the first guest, I think, in Discograffiti history, at least one that I'm aware of, who's laying down while doing this.
Yeah, it's true.
Your head is nestled upon your pillow.
Yeah, I can look better if I wanted to, but I'm too lazy.
So your dad, Simon, was a classical violinist, performed with the 20th Century Fox Orchestra from 1936 to 39, and was the orchestra's contractor at the studio from 39 to 55. When you were 13 in 1954, your dad was watching the studio system collapse and put up the family furniture as collateral to fund Liberty Records. Is that right? Did I get that right?
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, he never told my sister or me, and he would tell us a lot, but he never mentioned that, nor did my mother. But it sounds like something he would have done.
And the reason why I phrased it as a question is I've never heard of somebody as that being a thing where somebody could put up their furniture as collateral. But but it sounds like it may have happened. And so in any case, he funded the launch of Liberty Records and was actually the inspiration for one of the chipmunks being named Simon.
Right. My mother is Jeanette.
That's awesome. It's so cool. So Liberty, thank God, is one of the most successful independent labels of the post-World War II period. And the very first release on the label was a composition called The Girl Upstairs by Lionel Newman. His nephew, Randy, you guys are raised in the same neighborhood. You guys are best friends from a young age. And when you were 10, you discovered that Randy was gifted. How exactly did that come to pass? What happened?
I can't remember whose idea it was. May have been Randy's father, who was also very musical, even though, he was a gifted doctor. And I think he was trying to encourage us to write songs or something. I don't remember. I do remember coming up with, a terrible little George M. Cohan-like song called General Jones or something like that. It was, in those days, the war was a part of our lives, and you don't forget stuff like that. So it sticks with you for a while. I wrote this thing, and then Randy played something, or there was a tape or something. I think we were together, but when I heard the melody, because that's all there was, the harmonic brain power that he has, I stepped aside immediately, knowing this is gifted. And if I can't do that, I'm not going to try. And I know I can't.
But, if you don't mind, I can't stop thinking about these two incredibly successful people who are dealing with self-confidence issues. And I'm just thinking about, I'm really wondering how that manifests, especially when you have, you specifically, when you have a massive team under you and are you doubting what you do, or how does it manifest for you?
Well, when you're in the studio, the thing that you want to do is create an environment that, if nothing else, gives the musician, or the musicians rather, an understanding of what we were trying to do. And because I didn't have the kind of musical vocabulary that I thought I needed to have, I struggled. I was able to do things a lot of times just with the references. Do you remember People Get Ready? You remember that little guitar part and whatever. I always looked down on that. the people I worked with never said much about that. In fact, in some cases, they said it was better that I wasn't telling them what to play, which I wouldn't have done anyway. I was working with people where they were so good. It was just getting the best out of them, which was making sure the environment was open and free, and knowing that they're not expected to come up with some sort of hit thing that they're not really into, but much more about who they were.
The self-confidence thing that we were talking about before, it's nagging at me because I feel like you didn't give me a really straight answer with how that stuff manifests with the two of you. It's pulling at my attention because I feel like you didn't really talk about it. And I don't want to overly harp on it, but a guy or guys like the two of you guys whose accomplishments are staggering. And I think the reason why I keep coming back to it is because it gives me a lot of hope that there could be somebody who is so accomplished who could feel a sense of fraud syndrome.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do, and I'll include Randy in this, with our background and our families. In Randy's case, his uncle was Alfred Newman. That's 9 Oscars, you know. When you went over to the Newman house, it's pretty much the first thing you see.
Okay. So is it living up to the family's...
Yeah, and his family, they were rough. They were incredibly smart, very funny, most of them.
So with the two of you guys, was that pressure coming mostly from within, or was it coming externally?
No, both, actually.
All right, that about does it. To hear the full episode, just visit patreon.com/discograffiti and either subscribe as a private or higher, or just purchase it as a one-off. If you are a fan of the show, please do one of those two to help ensure Discograffiti's continued existence. Stay tuned, because next week brings upon us the continuation of our discussion with Lenny Waronker, as we find the man responsible for unleashing one of the weirdest and most expensive albums of all time, becoming the head of Warner Brothers Records. Okay, here's the week up ahead. This Sunday, our weekly show within a show, the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound podcast, drops for our Patreon's private tier. These are real people with talent and a burning fire deep inside, just like you and I. Then, come Tuesday, the major tier gets a very special treat. Tuesday's bonus episode is part 2 of our Lenny Waronker series, in which Lenny and I take a lengthy deep dive into the murkily opaque waters of Dyke Parks Song Cycle, in order to hopefully shine a light or two on one of the most mysterious and daring works to ever hit a record store shelf. There will be a very short sneak peek running publicly for free on Tuesday morning, but the entirety of the show will only be accessible on the major tier of our Patreon. A heartfelt Discograffiti thanks goes out to my beautiful wife and son, Jen and Mason, Lenny Waronker, Rudy Fishman, Becky Boyd, my mom, my dad, my incredibly loyal fans, and especially the entire Patreon community, the Soldiers of Sound. I love every last one of you, and this show would not exist without you, my friends. Speaking of friends, it's high time for some new ones. They're in our Facebook group, Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound. That's the best way to find out what's coming up on the show, but there's a hell of a lot more. You get recaps of the day in music history, the ability to pitch questions to guests, polls that put you in the driver's seat on guest and band decisions, and access to a thriving creative hub if you're looking for a collaborator. So make sure you don't miss out. You can find the link to the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound Facebook page right there in the show notes. And if you don't mess with the Zuck, no sweat. Just email me at info@discograffiti.com and I'll keep you in the loop. So now that it's done and you want more, another way to dive even deeper into the classic rock and roll from the 1960s is to go to the Beach Boys Season 1, Catch a Wave, 1961 to 1964, from episode 189 on, the Righteous Brothers Bill Medley interview, that's 181 and 182, My interview with the Free Design, that's 160 to 162. My epic interview with the Mamas and Papas Michelle Phillips, that's 141 to 159. Blood, Sweat, and Tears, that's 137. My 12-hour interview with Terry Kirkman and Jules Alexander from the Association, that's 109 to 113. Vashti Bunyan reading her entire output, that's 103 to 104. Sergio Diaz from Os Mutantes, that's 86 and 87. Bert Summer, that's 83 and 84. Sweetwater is episode 79. A tribute to David Crosby, 77 and 78. Andrew Tuttle rates the Monks, 74. Jim Florentine on Black Sabbath is 64 to 68. Lou Barlow on the Zombies is 59 and 60. Marvin Gaye biographer David Ritz rates Marvin Gaye, that's 45 to 47. Blind Faith is 43. Anthony Fantano rates the Velvet Underground, it's 32 and 33. Bob Forrest rates the band is 25 and 27. Monkees manager Andrew Sandoval rates the Monkees, that's 22 and 23. Don Randy rates David Axelrod as 17. Badfinger is 16. The Bee Gees is 10 and 11. Sly and the Family Stone is 5, 6, and 7. And Pink Floyd is 1 and 2. And of course, be sure to mark your calendars, because next Friday, February 6th, we're coming at you with the continuing saga of Lenny Waronker. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss it. And so, from now till then, don't let our youth go to waste, lads and ladies. It's Discograffiti!